Welcome to the very first episode of How I Wish I Learned Music. In this first video, I want to talk about my motives for creating this series. First, I'll show you in a nutshell what I want to teach you, and then second, I'll talk about my learning experience and why I wish I learned music in a different way. This series is going to be about thinking of music as fluid movements as opposed to static chords. I think one of the first things we should learn to do with our major scale is to move in contrary motion. And what I mean by that is make one voice go up and one voice go down. And contrary motion like that in two voices would sound like this. What if we fill in notes in between those two expanding voices to make beautiful chords the whole way through? So we can play fluid polyphonic motion in contrary motion, oblique motion, and parallel motion. Now, here's another quick example of why you might want to watch this series. You've probably heard something like this. The aim of this series is to learn how to play fluid movements as opposed to thinking about just static chords. Think about you listen to some old crooners singing a song. In the background, the strings aren't just playing these chords. They're moving, they're flowing. So in this series, How I Wish I Learned Music, I'm going to argue, why don't we learn to play our guitars a little something more like this? And this is a pretty forced example, moving, stepwise through scales, but I think it'll get the point across. And also, I think I'm gonna try to shoot some of these stuff in a point of view, so you could see how it looks from your point of view playing guitar with these glasses. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about my learning experience. So I picked up guitar in 8th grade when I found my dad's old guitar, this one, in the basement. And the way I started learning was just going on YouTube, looking up songs that I loved and learning them. So I learned from people like Marty Schwartz, the classic guitar YouTubers. And I still think that's a great way to get started on guitar, just getting used to the technique of putting your fingers on the fretboard, strumming, all that good stuff. Then, going into high school, I started learning music theory on YouTube, traditional music theory, and I got involved in a rock band club, which was really fun, and I played in the jazz band also, which, really helped me pick up on music theory concepts. I also took formal music theory courses in high school. Then, over the summer in high school, I went to a Berklee guitar camp, Berklee College of Music in Boston, and we talked about theory there, and I learned it in sort of the traditional way. Then going into college, I'm really into music production, so I was doing music technology at MIU, and I took a year's worth of music theory courses there, and it was also traditional music theory. And every time I would learn music theory in that way, I was always a little bit bothered by the logical inconsistencies I would see, especially when they were teaching something like jazz music, and there would be a lot of just sort of gaps where they just filled in by saying, well, that works because it's nice voice leading, or, well, yeah, that does break the rules, but you're allowed to do that. And I was always kind of searching for something more, a way to understand music in its entirety. Then I came across one video of Dr. Barry Harris, a master jazz pianist and educator. And I'll link that video in the description because I saw that video and I saw how passionate he was and how he wanted to teach other people this genius theory he discovered. And ever since then, I was hooked. I went to a piano, worked out what he was playing, and I was just amazed. And I kept looking up more videos of him.
Said, who do they ask how to teach in these colleges? See, that's what's wrong. They certainly didn't ask Hank Jones. They didn't ask John Lewis. They didn't ask him. Dick Katz, John Bunch. They didn't ask any of those cats. And they're the ones. They're the ones we learned from. Bud Powell, John Lewis. So,
yes.
But see, they goofed on that. So most of the schools are wrong. So what we're trying to do is, you and I, we're trying right now to show some of the things that are right.
All right.
Okay.
Eventually, I stumbled across two incredible YouTube channels that take his teachings and apply them to the guitar. The first channel is Things I've Learned from Barry Harris, and that channel is by Chris Parks. He was a student of Barry's, in person at his workshops for a long time, and he sort of did learn music theory in this way. So he shares things he learned directly from Barry and applies them to guitar. And he's a great teacher. I highly recommend the channel. The second channel is called Labyrinth of Limitations, and that is Thomas Eccles. He did not study directly with Barry, but rather he's taking Barry's teachings and just continuing to spread them. And he's developed a really great system he calls the elevator system for contrary motion, which is what I showed you, moving voices apart and together. And that can be used also for oblique motion and parallel motion. So at first, I would take parts of Barry's theory and apply them to my foundation of music theory and kind of mash them together. And I started playing really beautiful stuff I'd never thought to play, and I was amazed by it. But I was still struggling to make it work with what I knew about music theory. And over time, that reluctancy to let go of my traditional music theory has just slipped away, and I completely subscribe to Barry's school of thought. So ever since then, when I'm playing music with people, I can't help but tell them about these things. Sometimes I'll play something like we're playing a blues and I'll play movements like I talk about, and people will be like, whoa, what was that? Where did you learn that? And I'll tell them, and I'll point them to these YouTube channels, and a lot of people get really excited about it, just like I have. So that's why I've decided to make this series, and I hope you enjoy. In the next episode, we're going to cover Barry Harris's creation theory for music.